Hello, and welcome to the first edition of the Drive to Growth with Repsly, where we break down some of the largest trends and opportunities around the retail space. I'm Ben Weiner, and I'm joined by brand expert and chief customer officer at Repsly, Matt DePaulis. Matt, how are you?
I'm great, Ben.
Matt, I want to jump right in with our first major trend, which is delivering on safety and trust by being there for their customers. A recent survey found that 65% of respondents believe that a brand's response during the pandemic will have a huge impact on their likelihood of purchasing it again, while 60% said that they're turning to brands that they only can absolutely trust. What can CPG brands and their field teams focus on?
Yeah, the focus has really got to be on people. The people that make up their community and the people who keep their business running from day to day. That's really nothing new. What's new is that people have been impacted, and so businesses now have an opportunity to demonstrate they care for people in a very tangible way. And the world's watching.
So how are you seeing brands interacting with their communities to build trust?
Well, trust is an important thing. It starts with understanding and empathy. And more than ever, we're seeing our partners engage and understand that in this pandemic, people have been impacted in very different ways. So based on how folks have been impacted, we're seeing these brands responding. There's different ways. One way many brands like Spendthrift, sparkling beverage are taking on is they understand that they just need a little bit of help. And so they've responded by donating product back to their community. Other brands like Dr. Oetker and Kraft Heinz, they see that parents are challenged more than ever to put together nutritious meals for their children who are now at homeschooling as opposed to going into the classroom. And there's other brands like Greenhouse Juice who see the rise in homelessness and they're taking action in a really powerful way.
You mentioned taking care of their people. How are you seeing our business partners do this?
Yeah, our business partners, taking care of your people is the most important thing. How a business takes care of its people, it really says a lot about who they are. And it starts with making sure that your team, your people have a safe environment and set of work conditions. It's top priority right now. It's really paramount. We're even seeing our partners using Repsly to help them out. And a couple examples of that, when the pandemic first hit, a lot of folks had to work from home. And so they're using Repsly to do that and stay productive. As stores started opening back up and we're putting our team out into the field, using Repsly to order things like PPE to keep them safe, or using our scheduling module so that they could react to changing store hours and conditions is really important to stay productive. And then now what we're seeing is that teams are using Repsly for things like contact tracing and safety training.
That's some really great insight. Matt, I want to move on to our next topic. 2020 was undoubtedly a monumental year for digital transformation in retail, championed by brands that had a strong technology stack already in place. What are your initial thoughts on this trend, and how do you expect to see this continue to play out in the near future?
Well, at its core, digital transformation enables businesses to be more agile. And the pandemic, it's just put a big spotlight on that need to be agile. Those businesses further along in their digital transformation journey, they've got a solid technology infrastructure in place, and they've been able to respond to changing conditions faster and win relative to their competition.
So what about moving forward for these brands?
Moving forward, well, change is the only constant, right? We know that consumer buying patterns are shifting more quickly, and expanding distribution channels is creating greater need for connectivity and interoperability so that teams have visibility across channels.
So I want to move on to our next topic, which is blended strategies. We've been seeing some brands switching to blended team strategies with supplementing in-house reps with their third-party merchandisers. What are your thoughts on the challenges and opportunities of this model? And is this a future-proof model for brands moving forward?
Yeah, I love this strategy for a lot of reasons. If it's done correctly, it's the best way for brands to boost coverage and manage through these peaks and valleys of workforce demand while protecting cost and ultimately their business margin. When responding to the challenges in the supply chain, we're reaching remote accounts or executing on blitzes and promotions. Brands are challenged with overinvesting in resources and travel. And COVID has put a big spotlight on these difficulties, managing these surges of demand to keep product on the shelf, even with a workforce who's unpredictably, they can't predict whether or not they're going to get sick or their family's impacted or they have conditions out of their control. And all of a sudden they're not available. So what do we do? Well, resource management really just never been more difficult. And retail service providers have really stepped up to assist in backfilling. Now, like any strategy, there's going to be pros and there's cons. And to a large extent, brands can manage the challenges of a blended workforce by picking the right partners and integrating them into their retail execution strategies, bring them on solutions like Repsly.
Lastly, I'd like to talk with you about brand promotions. While this past year saw the simplification of SKUs as brands focused heavily on their top-selling center store products, which consequently reduced the number of promotional SKUs around the perimeter, how do you think brands will move back to their promotional strategies during COVID?
Well, that's a personal question, Ben. Promotions, they're really personal. Brand promotional strategy is largely different based on their end consumers and their retail partners. What we can say is that from a macro level, we do know a couple of things. Through the end of COVID, consumers, shoppers' missions are being optimized for safety, fewer trips, and less time in the store, which means less time scrutinizing differences in price. For retail teams, the primary focus through COVID will remain on keeping stock available and easily accessible.
So Matt, what are your thoughts on post-COVID?
Following COVID, economics looking back on history tell us that we expect consumers to have more of a saver mentality, which tells us pricing is going to be more heavily scrutinized, and a strong promotional strategy is going to be even more important than it ever was.
And how can field teams turn this into an opportunity?
Well, it's change. Change is an opportunity for everyone in any business line. In today's day and age, there's no such thing as standing still and being in the same spot you were yesterday. If your retail execution strategy isn't better today than it was yesterday, relative to your peers, you're not the same. You're actually falling behind because theirs is going to get better from day to day. The businesses that are leveraging digital technology to most quickly identify and respond to changes in market conditions, changing retail ecosystems, and changing consumer behaviors, they're going to have a natural advantage over their competitors.
And what additional areas of focus do you see in the new year for brands and their field teams?
In a lot of ways, it will be a continuation of a theme we've seen in years past, where we've seen even more maturity in how manufacturers and retail service providers are using data to react quicker to changing conditions and make more informed business decisions to help them optimize their retail execution strategies and ultimately boost sales. Then never has there been a time where access to data has been more prolific. It's really exciting. Often when we're working with our business partners, we discuss their data management strategy and where they stand on their journey and what next steps they could take to continue to evolve and mature. We talk a lot about Repsly's data management maturity framework. It's got 4 stages. Number 1, it's all about planning. Number 2, it's making sure you have the right infrastructure and your team's enabled. Number 3, you got to think about interoperability and enriching data sources. And then the penultimate, the place you always want to be is in stage 4. It's this continuous improvement evolution that's really never ending. It's quite cyclical.
Matt, I'd love if you could elaborate on these stages. Could we start with the first one with planning?
Yeah, we can go really in depth. I mean, I'll stay high level on this, but that first stage planning for a team that's focusing on evolving their data management strategy, the first thing they got to do is develop a cohesive data management strategy and plan. And what you do is you start with discussions with key stakeholders around what is the end result we're looking for. Ask your team, what insights will you use, if you had them, to make very specific business decisions and take action, right? Too often teams are using data for the sake of data. You got to make sure you know what you're going to do with that data, what decisions you're going to make, and how you're going to take action. So that's number 1, it's planning. Number 2, it's about making sure you have the right systems, process, procedure in place so that everybody has what they need to be successful. And that means you got to ensure that they're able to quickly gather and collect all the different types of data that you need. At Repsly, we talk about the 3 types of retail execution data: observational, activity data, and sales. Next, you got to be able to have the ability to take all of that data, take it and present it out in a way that's consumable and understandable to major stakeholders. Your territory and regional managers, they shouldn't have to be data analysts. They shouldn't have to bring in an interpreter to say what this data means. They should be able to quickly, easily understand and consume it. You need the right systems and tools around you to help you do that. And then thirdly, in that same solution, once you are presenting this data in a way people understand, give them ways that they can actually take action and do something about the insight that they saw by maybe deploying their team and pushing out a very specific set of business priorities across their workforce. So that's number 2. Number 3, that's interoperability and enrichment. The next stage for teams, and by integrating and merging data across multiple data sources, we're able to enrich insights and analyze the correlation between programs and teams. And then finally, the penultimate, it's continuous improvement. Is there a way that I can use past historic outcomes from programs to inform how I execute on future ones? Do I have this continuous feedback loop to make sure that we're taking advantage of data?
Matt, thank you so much for your insights. It'll definitely be exciting to watch as brands leverage these strategies to win in the new year. I appreciate you joining the inaugural episode of the Drive to Growth with Repsly. If you'd like to learn more about how your field team can excel in 2021, please visit the Repsly blog at repsly.com/blog. I'm Ben Weiner, signing off for myself and Matt. We'll see you next time on the Repsly Drive to Growth.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon.